It was one of those quiet Sunday afternoons that almost feel too still to trust. Mia and I were out in the backyard, the kind of ordinary moment you don't think twice about. She was watering the flowers, softly humming a tune she'd invented on the spot, completely wrapped up in her own little world. I remember thinking how peaceful everything felt, like the day had decided to give us a break for once. Looking back, I should have known better. Nothing stays calm for long in this neighborhood. The gate suddenly flew open with enough force to slam against the fence and echo through the yard. Karen Mitchell, the HOA president and self-appointed enforcer of everyone else's lives, stormed in like she had every right to be there. No knock, no greeting, no hesitation. She marched straight toward us, stopped in front of my 8-year-old daughter, pointed at her, and said flatly, "Your little girl stole Mrs. Patterson's diamond bracelet at yesterday's block party. I have a witness." In that instant, everything seemed to freeze. The air, the sounds, even my own heartbeat. Mia looked up at me, confusion and fear written all over her face, and then the tears came quietly. I forced myself to stay steady and asked Karen one simple thing, keeping my voice even. Who exactly was this witness? She folded her arms with a kind of smug confidence that made it clear she'd practiced this moment before and answered without hesitation. Debbie. Of course it was Debbie. The same woman who once complained to the HOA because someone's garden hose didn't match her idea of acceptable color. Calling her a witness felt like calling gossip evidence. Karen didn't stop there. She dug into her oversized bag and pulled out her phone like she was presenting some undeniable proof in a courtroom. The image she showed was blurry, taken from a distance, and proved absolutely nothing. Just a group of kids near a table, indistinct and meaningless. Still, she held it up proudly, chin lifted as if she had just solved a major crime. I nearly laughed, not because it was funny, but because I knew exactly what had really happened at that block party. Mia had spent the entire time by the bounce house with a few other kids, laughing so hard she could barely stand. I had stayed close to her the whole evening, never more than a step or two away. Mrs. Patterson had even walked past us twice, smiling politely without saying a word. There had been no accusation, no tension, nothing even remotely like what Karen was describing. This entire story had been stitched together from nothing but assumptions and loose talk. Then, without blinking, Karen delivered her ultimatum. Return the bracelet by tonight, or she would take it to the HOA board and the police. Standing there in my own backyard while she staged this little display, I felt something change inside me. It wasn't panic. It was colder than that, a kind of clarity. I calmly told her to leave my property. She refused at first, then turned and walked out through the gate like she had more work to do, moving from house to house, knocking on doors as if she were campaigning to spread the story. I stood there watching, struggling to process what I was seeing. Within 2 hours, the neighborhood WhatsApp group had erupted. Messages flooded in from every direction, full of speculation and half-formed opinions. People who hadn't even been at the block party were suddenly experts on my daughter's behavior. A few HOA members sent me carefully worded messages, passive-aggressive enough to avoid direct accusation, but clear enough in their implication. They had already decided what to believe without hearing anything from me. While I was staring at my phone, trying to keep up with the chaos, Mia came up behind me and gently tugged at my sleeve. When I looked down, she had the same scared expression from earlier, her voice small and uncertain. "Did I do something bad?" she asked softly. "Why does everyone think I'm a thief?" That question hit harder than anything Karen had said. I set my phone down immediately, crouched to meet her at eye level, and told her as clearly as I could that she had done nothing wrong at all. But when she turned and walked back inside, I knew this wasn't going to end on its own. Inside, I stayed completely motionless for a long stretch, letting the moment settle. Something had finally locked into place. This wasn't about a bracelet anymore. It was about my daughter's name, her sense of self, and the version of this story she would carry with her if I chose to stay silent. I reached for my phone and called my lawyer, Marcus, laying out every detail without leaving anything out. He listened without interruption, then replied with 4 words that finally let me breathe again. "This changes absolutely everything." For the first time since Karen stepped onto my property, I felt the balance beginning to tilt, and I had every intention of pushing it further. The next morning, I woke up still weighed down by everything from the day before. Sleep had barely touched me. My thoughts kept circling the same images. The unclear photo, Debbie's useless statement. Karen's expression as she pointed at my daughter. I stood in the kitchen making coffee when my phone rang. An unknown number. I almost ignored it. I didn't. The voice on the other side was quiet, hesitant, almost uneasy. It was Mrs. Patterson. She apologized before even finishing her introduction. She explained that she had found her bracelet the night before, resting in the side pocket of her car, exactly where she had placed it for safekeeping before the party. It had never been missing. Then she said something that made everything stop. She told me she had never spoken to Karen about any of this. She had never accused anyone, never mentioned Mia, never asked for help. Karen had constructed the entire accusation out of nothing, stepping into the roles of investigator, judge, and executioner without the supposed victim even knowing. Mrs. Patterson agreed to put it all in writing and said she would fully cooperate if needed. I thanked her, ended the call, and sat with the weight of that truth for a quiet moment. Then I called Marcus again and repeated her words exactly as she had said them. There was a brief silence before his tone shifted, steady and precise, like someone who had just been given the missing piece. She didn't just defame your daughter, he said. She fabricated the entire story. Karen just made this incredibly easy for us. Marcus didn't delay. By that same afternoon, the lawsuit was filed. Defamation of a minor, harassment, and emotional distress. 3 charges, each one backed with screenshots, timestamps, messages, and Mrs. Patterson's written statement. Karen had unknowingly provided every piece of evidence we needed. That's the thing about people driven by arrogance. They never expect resistance. I was sitting on my front porch when the process server walked up Karen's driveway. I won't pretend I was outside for any other reason. I watched her open the door, saw her expression shift from annoyance to confusion to something closer to real fear as she read through the papers. It was the first genuine emotion I had seen from her since all of this started. She glanced up, and for a brief second our eyes met across the street. I didn't acknowledge her. I simply turned and went back inside. About an hour later, my phone rang. It was Karen. I let it keep ringing. Then came the voicemail. Her voice, stripped of authority and certainty, sounded smaller than I had ever heard it before. She spoke with far less certainty than she had shown in my backyard, tripping over her phrasing, hinting she might have rushed things, and suggesting we could settle it quietly as neighbors instead. I played it once, sent it straight to Marcus, and left it unanswered. He filed it with the rest of the evidence without a second thought. The HOA board, feeling pressure tighten around them, tried to recast themselves as neutral. Marcus responded that same afternoon with a legal notice that made that stance meaningless. Within 48 hours, they publicly separated themselves from Karen. Even Debbie, once central to Karen's claims, submitted a written statement withdrawing everything she had said she witnessed. The neighbors who had been quick to speculate in that WhatsApp group suddenly went silent. Karen had stepped into my yard with the confidence of someone untouched by consequences, and she was about to learn otherwise. The courtroom was smaller than I imagined, yet the silence inside carried weight. Karen looked diminished, as if weeks had slowly drained her certainty. The sharp confidence she once displayed was gone. She sat stiffly beside her lawyer, staring ahead, avoiding our side entirely. Mrs. Patterson testified first, calm and precise in a way that carried impact. Under oath, she stated she never lost her bracelet, never reported it stolen, never mentioned Mia, and never authorized Karen to act for her. Each statement landed firmly. Karen's lawyer tried to frame everything as a misunderstanding driven by concern. Marcus let him finish before carefully taking apart each point, presenting the blurred photo, the recorded voicemail, the WhatsApp screenshots, and Debbie's retraction in a clear sequence. There was nothing left to dispute. The judge paused, looking at Karen before speaking. A misunderstanding, he said, is forgetting a name. This was a public accusation against a child without evidence, authority, or regard for harm. The room remained still. The decision came swiftly. $120,000 in damages for emotional distress and defamation, mandatory resignation from the HOA board, and a written public apology addressed directly to Mia. I didn't react outwardly. I just looked at my hands and remembered that quiet Sunday afternoon when everything had been calm and my daughter hummed a song she made up herself. Karen paid in full. She stepped down the following week and delivered her apology sealed in an envelope she seemed reluctant to close. I read it once, folded it, and set it aside, not as a trophy, but as proof that patience and persistence bring accountability. We used part of the settlement to take Mia to Disney World, the trip she had dreamed about for 2 years. I watched her run toward the castle, laughing so freely that the weight of those weeks disappeared. She knew nothing about the courtroom or the case. She only knew she was exactly where she wanted to be. Karen tried to make my daughter feel like a criminal. Instead, she had the happiest summer of her life. Never come after someone's child, especially mine.